And we are live. Welcome to another show of the New York Information Security Meetup. And I have the great pleasure to introduce Robert Hamilton, as Director of Mentors at iQ4. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, Robert, mentorship, especially in cybersecurity, is such a big topic. I don't even know where, like, I'd like to peel the onion, but I don't know where to start. Should like, from the edge. Uh, why don't we start maybe kind of your background? I see like you have a really cool musician background, a physical background, and then also background of what you've done in your life. So maybe we can start with that, and then we hopefully I'll find a thread that I can start pulling.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. By the way, I think you're very wise when it comes to peeling onions. Approach with caution. Yeah. So mentoring, where would you start? Well, first of all, you said mentoring in cybersecurity. So I guess the first thing to say is mentoring is way broader, way bigger than cybersecurity. While
That's right.
iQ4 is dedicated to cybersecurity, and that is the thread, to use your word, that we're picking it up on, mentoring is a huge concept. And in my opinion, is a much underutilized resource in society. It's a much underperformed relationship. Now, it's interesting you're talking about my background. So, you know, I've had many, many jobs and many, many careers over the course of my life. And one of the things that people forget as they get older is that as they pick up more and more experience, they actually become more and more learned, more knowledgeable. But it's the real life experience component that they're picking up on that's really very valuable in an educational context. And so that's why I'm very passionate. As somebody who had multiple um, career paths, shall we say, including music, I really appreciate the value that each experience delivered to me and that I can then pass on. So now I hope that's not too broad a beginning, David, to the
Yeah,
concept.
not at all. So, how did you become responsible for mentors at IQ4? And maybe we can just talk a bit about IQ4, what it is,
Yeah.
what kind of the mission statement is, and then we dive deeper into kind of the mentorship program and so on.
Yeah, so IQ4's mission is really multifold, but as far as we're concerned, twofold. The first is to address, in this case, the cybersecurity field, the skills shortage, the gap, what they often call the gap. It was pretty clear that the development in cybersecurity had way outstripped the development within the educational environment. So a gap came to be. So that was iQ4's one of the missions was to address that, and the second was to bring the world of education up to speed on technological development. And so ergo, we now have two missions that come together because it enabled us at iQ4 to take mentors who were in the field, working with the most innovative, most current applications of technology, and then bring them into the classroom, real live classroom, remotely, using the iQ4 application to deliver content. So that's how those two things came together. iQ4's mission is to transform the learning economy. So that's even bigger. But right now, what you and I are concerned with and interested in is cybersecurity, and then mentoring in cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And they always talk about a skill gap in cybersecurity. It's something that always come about, but yet there are tons and tons of programs out there, from pen testing to boot camps to full-fledged 4-year university degree. um, what do you think that is? Why is there such a skills shortage still at cybersecurity, despite the fact that there are plenty of tools available for people to bring themselves up to speed?
Well, the biggest reason is the speed with which technology developed. The educational system just wasn't up to the job of getting into that kind of flux and being in time with it. There's a delay between, what's done in the field, the experience that's gleaned, and then how it gets back to education. Um, when I got involved in education, I became really, really passionate about it, and I became very, very aware of the gap between the real world and the what's often referred to unfairly, I think, as the ivory tower syndrome in education. That's just a reality. The fact of the matter is that the learning environment is not the work environment. So there is a built-in disconnect. It's really nobody's fault. So to blame education is wrong. And anyway, I didn't want to blame education. I just wanted to get to the job of, addressing it. So I have a concept that I call KSA pollination. Um, KSA stands for knowledge, skills, and abilities. And that's really the standard, and that's the go-to professional competency in the field, in the workplace. But it's not really what exists in the educational environment. So by using mentors, what we're doing is we're sort of taking the skills that exist in the work place and pollinating the education and environment with those skills by this interaction between mentors and students. So it was a way to really influence education and influence the shortage that exists.
So interesting. So when you mention pollination, what in actuality does that look like? So let's say a mentor takes ownership over a particular course or becomes a um, kind of a shepherding a certain number of students,
Yeah,
and so and I'm kind of in my mind I'm thinking about it almost like a um, like a chart where there's a kind of the formal education and then the non-formal, and then maybe there's a cross somewhere in between. But in actuality, where does the magic happen when that process has been initiated, and somebody goes out there and carry ownership over particular students?
yeah. So it's interesting you use the word chart. There is, for instance, the taxonomy, the NIST framework, and the NICE people have created a taxonomy of skill sets that have been deemed by various research, by their own research, um, as to what skills, what knowledge, and what abilities are necessary for certain roles. So it's not a chart, it's an actual taxonomy. Now, in the platform, we have basically mapped that taxonomy, those skill sets, to various roles within the environment. And then we create scenarios, such as, for instance, the threat within scenario. And then we have students take on roles, such as a behavioral analyst
Hmm.
or a threat analyst. And then their roles are mapped to a certain set of skill sets. And as they're engaging with the mentors can look at the skill sets that they're developing and can take their own experience to try and help the students in those various roles develop those skill sets. And then they will mark assignments and give assessments as to the skill set levels that are being achieved. And then by the end of the program, the student has a good sense of what skill sets they've picked up, and the mentors have a good sense of what they've delivered, basically. And then it's an ongoing experience, constantly evolving, and that's why I'm involved, exclusively with the mentors.
So what's the difference between a mentor and a like just a tutor, somebody out there that does where kind of the value add for the mentorship, and then specifically, I know that you worked a lot on mentor development. So maybe potentially can kind of define what a mentor really is, kind of reveal that enigma. and
Yeah.
then what makes a good mentor? What are the kind of the attributed qualities of somebody that wants to really contribute?
Yeah, I'm going to address the last one first and say
Yeah, go ahead.
you just have to be human. So, but you have to be human with a desire to give back, I think. You have to have a lot of patience. But that would be my answer to the last question. But other than that, that's a great question. What is a mentor? It's one of those things where everybody knows, or they at least think they know what a mentor is, and we do all kind of instinctively know what a mentor is. Um, so what's interesting about mentoring and why I have a passion for it is that I was also a teacher or an instructor or a professor, depending on who you are and you want to call it. And I believe very, very passionately that at the center of education is the instructor, or sometimes better stated, the instructional component. Um, and that's always been the case. But as you saw from what I spoke about earlier, we had this gap. So I think that going forward, a modern additional component to what I refer to as the instructional component is the mentor. So now what we're looking to develop is a relationship between the traditional instructor and the mentor. So what is the mentor? As I said, we all think we know what it is. Well, what I'm discovering is that, the classic description is a guide, somebody of trust, somebody who's willing to impart their knowledge, their experience, and give advice. That would be the standard traditional concept. But what we're doing here really has a multifaceted element to it. Because yes, that's still in place, and mentors will typically just naturally, gravitate to a mentor to mentee disposition and give individual students one-on-one, advice. That's just going to happen. That's not necessarily what we're about, though, here, because really this is very team-based or cohort-based. So what we've discovered is that this modern rendition, the iQ4 CWA rendition of mentoring, is much more like a coach. It has that coaching element. Um, so it you know the the students are put together in teams, and then a mentor will basically mentor the team. But in that sense, they're really coaching the entire team. And sometimes there's more than one team, sorry, in a session at a time. So multiple teams are getting advice from mentors. So in this regard, this modern version of mentoring is a lot more sophisticated and has that additional component. So that's what I'd like people to walk away from listening to this, is that they're an extension to the instructional component. They're a broader disposition than mentor to mentee. They're actually like a coach. And the last thing I would say about this, by the way, I'm Irish, so you probably noticed no problem getting me to talk, right? But anyway, yeah, the last thing I would say is a really important element of mentoring is this desire to give back. And that's very similar to, I find, what drives people to want to be coaches, for their school's soccer team or baseball team. And that's the same sort of passion that we want to see and would like to see in our mentors. And it is actually the passion that causes mentors to step forward and say, hey, you know what? I'll give that a shot. I wouldn't mind doing that, because it's their opportunity to give back. And so at iQ4, we feel that we're also involved in this great give back to society and to education and to the world that we live in. So that would be very much at the core of the essence of mentoring and the iQ4 CWA mission. But it's all about giving back to society.
So this is interesting. So you mentioned giving back, which is really, a lofty goal, and I think a lot of people want that, and I think a lot of people also it's something that they have. They make a list in the morning, right? And maybe like item number five is give back,
Yeah,
right? But in actuality, when it comes down to making that commitment, it's not easy. You got to have, you got to, set some time aside. You have to be committed to the program and so on. So maybe, describe what that looks like, what that commitment looks like. And then, um, you mentioned giving back, but there's also a tremendous satisfaction, right? There's something that you
yeah,
you get back as well. So you're
yeah.
not just it's not a one way street. There's
It's
a tremendous learning curve, and then some feedback from the students and reward that in one way. And you could probably describe that better than I can do.
Yeah, no, that's a really I'm really delighted you brought that up actually, because that's really, key to the whole thing. So the first thing is when I say give back, on in the sense of IQ4, that's very important to us. We're constantly um, assessing the amount that we can give back to the mentors. So that's why I really appreciate you bringing this up. Um, and it's true, they get up in the day, and not very high up on the list is their own give back, and with very good reason. Reality kind of gets in the way. So the two things that I wanted to say there was one, we want to give back to the mentors, and two, we're very alive to and extremely sensitive to the constraints under which they bring their passion to the table. So the way now I would then address that is to say, we, for instance, we work with professional entities. I don't think it would be appropriate to name them. I'm sure you probably know who they are, but they get CPEs. So if you mentor with our program, you can get a CPA credit. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing I would say is the community of mentors is wonderful. I mean, it's really, really amazing. And I've seen mentors make, a lot of really strong, valuable, useful relationships and friendships within the mentoring community. So they actually end up with a broader capability to bring to their own workplace. Um, Another thing that they get is they develop the coaching skill set, which is something that takes time to develop. So they can also bring that component back to their workplace, because workplaces in the modern workplace, one of the lessons has to be here in a workplace, you can't wait for education to come to you. You have to bring education to your workforce. And the best way to do that probably is through coaching. So we're giving companies mentors who are now have the skill to mentor and coach within their own companies. And then lastly, the last give back, and
And
you're
Robert,
probably thinking, wow, that's a lot of give back, right?
yeah, no, for sure. And I want to, you made an excellent point that I think a lot of the management style today is more of a mentorship as
Yeah,
opposed to, a boss and somebody who reports to them. It's very much a kind of mentorship, mentee type of
absolutely.
relationship.
Yeah, the reason I'm pointing this out is to help our mentors go to their companies and say, look, this isn't just for the students, this isn't just for CWA, this isn't just for me, this isn't just for IQ4. There's actually some of this is for you, my employer and the company that I care about. But the very last thing that I want to say, and this is really, really important, and it is the most important. The people that are good mentors, they do it out of passion. They do it out of passion. And so this gives them an amazing opportunity to feed that passion and have that necessity taken care of. It means that they get on with their lives feeling fuller about themselves. Um, and I'm very proud of that, because it means that we're empowering them to do something for themselves. So that's a very important component. And the last thing I want to refer to is the time, because again, we're super sensitive to the constraints that our mentors work under. Um, We only ask them for 1.5 hours per week. We tell them you're going to need to set that aside. But the other thing that we do, and I'm a big believer in this, is you develop anything, you have to have depth. You have to build in depth. One depth component that I'm working on is just the human component, the social component. But another another component has to be this addressing this time constraint. So we have depth in the form of backup mentors. So if a mentor really can't make a session, there is backup in place automatically. And it has to be there, and it has to be there to cater to those scenarios where 5 minutes before you go to mentor, you get a call and there's a cybersecurity crisis. And I'm sorry, guys, that comes first. So it's very important for us to say that your work comes first to every single mentor. And if that is what you have to put first, don't worry about it. We have a backup ready to catch you. So
What about the the kind of the technical skill set or a specific skill set? Is there anything in particular that you require or prefer, or does it matter? Like they come up from different different backgrounds.
no, again, that's why I said at the start, it might have sounded like I was just being facetious, but being human, if you're human, I know you'll pick it up as we go along. All musicians know that you pick up, eventually if you do things often enough. Um, no, I really would say that that's the most important skill set. And then to the extent that, you don't have some skill sets, I will absolutely guarantee you that you will pick them up. You'll get them from other mentors. I mean, you'll be watching other mentors and you'll see them answer a question in a certain way. And you'll go, wow, that's not the way I would have answered that. And now you've just learned something. So the next time somebody puts you in a spot like that, potentially about that one specific subject, you've got a whole new perspective. One of the things that I say, and I'm going to wax a little lyrical here now, is that life is all about perspective. And the more perspective you get, again, the deeper your life is, the more depth, but the broader your life is. And you can't get perspective in your office, in your cubicle, or in your bedroom. So, that's the other thing that maybe the give back that I should have mentioned is that broader perspective. But that broader perspective isn't just a view, it actually brings new skill sets. You will develop a capacity to talk to groups that you didn't have before. You'll develop a capacity to work with other mentors who are in the same skill set. You'll be able to read their minds. You'll be able to back them up. These are all skill sets that you will develop, and they're all skill sets that are very valuable. In life, there are skill sets that we need to constantly hone. I'm not even suggesting that people would be absent them. Many people will bring them to the table, but they'll also get an airing and get a dusting up. But there you go. I mean, I hope I answered that sufficiently.
Yeah, definitely. And with that answer, I was like, okay, how do I sign up? What's the
Good.
easiest way?
Well, that's the idea. Yeah. So, no, if anybody's listening, I would ask you if you're listening and you've got an idea that you might want to be a mentor. If you wanted to be a coach, but you just didn't have the time to do that, this is your opportunity. An hour and a half. All of this collegiate networking, all of these skill sets. All you got to do is send me an email. Is that okay if I give out my email?
Yeah, of course. That's the whole point. Just give
Ah,
out your email. That's
okay.
I was about to ask you how
Yeah.
do people get to get in touch with you? The quickest and easiest way.
Yeah. So it's Robert at iQ4.com. Robert at iQ4.com. I hope my
And
Irish accent didn't make that difficult to hear.
no, not at all. And you forgot to mention is one of the positive things you get to work with people like yourself with like tremendous experience.
Oh, you're very kind.
And then maybe if somebody's a mentor and a musician, maybe you guys can pick up a couple of tunes together.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, David, genuinely, I would say, I've made lots of friends over the years. And as anybody who gets to know me will know, I've had many different environments and many different backgrounds. But I will tell you absolutely from the heart, genuinely, I have made the greatest number and that greatest quality of friendships working as a mentor and working with mentors. Absolutely. I would have absolutely no problem saying that. You could take that to the bank. And that's something that I can give you right now. If you come work with us, without a shadow of a doubt, you'll make some amazing friends and
Yeah,
amazing quality
there's no
friends.
better way than to strive towards a goal, a mutual
Yeah.
goal, is and do that together. That's amazing,
Yeah.
Robert. It's been a real pleasure. I can't wait for this program to get filled with mentors knocking on your door and
Great.
asking how to join. And then maybe we'll do this on a regular basis. Maybe we'll peel the onion a little bit more on some mentorship topics, and we'll
Sure.
do maybe like 5-10 minutes of those, because again, I think I'd love to give back and provide some insight of what that process looks like, even more depth. So
Absolutely.
but it's been a real pleasure to have you, and looking forward to potentially seeing you in person sometime in New York City.
I look forward to it. I think we owe each other a pint of Guinness, right?
Yes, yes, maybe more than one. We'll
Maybe more
see.
than one.
You're Irish after all. Thanks, Robert. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye bye.